What's up, everyone? This is Carlos, aka Adam. Sorry I didn't get to this yesterday. It was kind of busy, but I am back with my night 2 of Fyter Fest from AEW, my recap and review of the, I guess you'd say, pay-per-view, even though it was on regular TV. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. Social media is down there. It was a really great night, some fantastic matches. So I'm going to go through them, go through the recap, the review, and how I did on my picks. I was much better on night 2 than I was on night 1. I only got one match wrong this time, and it was one that I wasn't very confident in. So I did pretty well, unlike last week. Last week where I did terrible. So we're going to jump right into it. Let's go through my stuff here. Computer got updated. Great. So they started off hot with that tag team title match. We get Kenny and Hangman versus Private Party. I think that they did this, they wanted to get it out of the way, especially Kenny and Hangman had, since this was taped, not live, unlike the first night of Fyter Fest. So I guess they just wanted to kind of get this out of the way for them. So before the match even starts, Britt sent a note, Britt Baker set up a note to Tony Schiavone saying that the pyro almost burned her, and it's another conspiracy to take her out. She played a little bit into the overall show. So we jump into it. We get a standing moonsault by Quen on Kenny, but Kenny gets the knees up. Double team chops on Quen by Hangman and Kenny. Hangman hits a pump handle fall-away slam with a bridge on Quen for a 2 count, which is actually pretty impressive. Private Party eventually hits the silly string on Kenny. Hangman powerbombs Quen into the stands. Cassidy hits a springboard cannonball onto Hangman and the crowd, but it was actually cool because he popped over the ropes and then jumped on the middle rope, but he was on the outside of the ring, so he used the middle rope as a springboard. It was actually really impressive to do it. Back in the ring, we get a Snapdragon on Cassidy. Quen counters a Snapdragon, but catches a boot. They do the assisted German suplex spot on Quen. We get a double Spanish fly by Private Party on Kenny, only get a 2 count. Kenny hits his You Can't Escape on Cassidy, then uses that to monkey flip Quen onto Cassidy, which is pretty cool. We get Hangman powerbombs Quen onto Cassidy, only gets a 2 count there. Moonsault on the outside by Cassidy on Kenny. Cassidy stops the buckshot, then hits a flatliner onto the ramp from the inside of the ring to the outside, which is pretty impressive. We get a shooting star press by Quen on Kenny, shooting star press on Hangman, but Kenny breaks the count. We get they reverse Gin and Juice Kenny and Hangman into an avalanche Liger bomb, and then they end up doing the last call on Cassidy for the win. So Kenny and Hangman, they retain. It was a great match. It does suck because I really wanted Best Friends to win last week, but I understand what they're doing here. I understand they want to keep this team strong and wait for either FTR or the Bucks to be able to take the tag titles off them. I think it would be smart. Eventually you'll see the split between Kenny and Hangman. Maybe they'll have some really good matches. That way you can, still keep your heavyweight title or your TNT title field going, and you can have these guys in something else that doesn't have to be title related. That's pretty smart. At least that's what I hope they're doing, because that would be smart. Long-term story booking. Not everyone needs to be in a title picture to be relevant or have a good storyline, which is something that AEW really excels at. Obviously you see in WWE some of these feuds that have nothing to do with titles, for the most part, are pretty lame, or it's the same thing repetitive week after week. That's the problem. For instance, the Rey Mysterio, Seth Rollins, it's pretty much the same thing every week now. There hasn't been any real wrinkles to it. But as I said, once they beat Best Friends, I assumed that they were going to beat Private Party. Let's see, and I was correct on that. Both my shoot and my kayfabe wanted Kenny and Hangman to win. I had 4 confidence points on that one. The next is Lawrence. I'm all over the place. Lance Archer versus Joey Janella. So for some reason commentary kind of spoils it. They're like, "Oh, where's Sonny Kiss, his tag team partner?" And it's like, okay, well, we know that means something. And sure enough, Archer, who usually brings out some production assistant or some jobber that he beats up, actually brought Sonny Kiss out on his shoulders and tossed him into the ring on top of Joey Janela. Archer obviously is on top to start. Janella hits a splash from the top to the outside. Janella then brings out a table, sets that up, which will play into the match later. Janella attempts to get a chair, but the ref stops him. Because this is it's not a no DQ match. So obviously Archer takes advantage. During the break, or picture in picture, he attacks Sonny Kiss through Janella over the barricade into a table. Then we're back in the ring. We're back to not picture in picture. He counters. Joey Janela counters a blackout for a 2 count. Super kick and then a V trigger on Archer. Jake gets on the apron. He brings out the big bag, which you assume has a snake in it. But while the ref is distracted with Jake, it actually gives Janela and Kiss an opportunity to to do some double team on Archer. We get a top rope senton by Janela and then a 450 splash by Kiss. They only get a 2 count though, and then you see Jake. He's actually sweating up a ton, but he's actually kind of distraught that he could have cost them the match. But eventually they're fighting on the apron on the outside of the ring, and then Archer's able to hit a blackout off the apron through the table that Janela set up earlier, rolls him back in for the win. This was never in doubt. Obviously, you knew that Janela was going to take a lot of crazy bumps while in this match, because that's what he does. Kept him strong though, because he can afford the loss. But I really do like Joey Janela. I do like the team of him and Kiss. I think they're pretty good, but after they lost to Dark Order and now this, you got to figure out what's going on. Kiss obviously will be featured next week, as he will be the next challenger for the TNT title. I don't anticipate him winning it, so anyway, so obviously, I was pretty confident in that one. Both shoot kayfabe, and I had 5 points of confidence on that one. So yeah, this was my second most confident match. So we get another video package from Darby Allin. He's actually at the Nitro Circus compound with Travis Pastrana. Those are always fun to watch. I did watch the show back when it was on MTV, and now I always see them on social media doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So he does a coffin drop from a really high thing into a foam pit. But he does call out Brian Cage. He's the one that says that Brian Cage put him out, and he's still not medically cleared. So he hasn't forgotten that. So eventually we'll see that, even though he should get destroyed by Cage, even though Cage will probably lose next week. So that prompts a in-ring interview with Cage and Tazz with Tony Schiavone. Tazz says that he shouldn't be going in there. He should have left today with a world championship, and he shouldn't go into the next match without one. So he says that he's brought out something that he put his life into, his blood, sweat, and tears into, and he pulls out the FTW World Championship. And if you know what FTW means, it's not for the win, it's not feed the whales, it's fuck the world. And he brought that out back in ECW back in the late 90s or mid-90s, I think, when he was feuding with Shane Douglas. I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to, pretend like I'm an expert on the FTW World Championship or ECW for that matter. But this was something, he says that no promotion has ever recognized this belt. He bestows it upon Cage because he said, who else would be the continue the mantle of this championship. He then goes on to say that this is renegade shit several times. I thought that was really funny. Taz has just been absolutely dynamite, no pun intended, on the mic, being the mouthpiece for Brian Cage. He's just cutting promos, left and right, as he could always do. He was always a great talker. He was great. He's great on commentary, especially when he's doing it on Dark with Excalibur. This is hyping up a really, really important match, even though they haven't. They've had some kind of skirmishes, but it really hasn't been the same, especially with the 2-week self-imposed quarantine because of his wife Renee Young getting it. That's kind of lost a little momentum for it, but Taz is doing his best to kind of keep it relevant and keep it going. We then get, which I thought might have been the main event, and based on just how fucking awesome it was, it should have been the main event, even though I thought the main event was really good too. So we get our 8-man tag, the Young Bucks and FTR versus Butcher, Blade, and the Lucha Brothers. So the heels come out driving in FTR's truck that they apparently stole from last week. So we get FTR with quick tags working over Pentagon. Tully and Spears are observing. This is, kind of interesting. I do think that they're going to try to restart the Four Horsemen, and it just seems like it would just be perfect. Spears and FTR. You got your tag team, you got your mid-card guy, and then you got your champion, as Cody would then take the mantle of the Four Horsemen. I just think, I mean, he's kind of, distanced himself from the Elite, from the Nightmare family. I think this would just be the next right step for him, even though it's hard to see him as like a heel. So, I'm not sure, but anyway, I digress. Pentagon has the fucking loudest chops ever, and then his kicks to the leg are just like, sounds like gunshots every time. It's so good. So he's chopping up Dax pretty good. Double team by the Bucks. They get involved. Butcher and Blade take control on Nick. Nick with the springboard Rana on Phoenix as both are on the ropes. This was just awesome. Nick is then kind of like they're both doing the bouncing on the ropes. That pretty much they're like two of the only people that can do it. And then he hits a top rope Rana. It's just awesome. We get a super kick Snapdragon by Nick and Cash Wheeler for a 2 count. So the real thing that was interesting in this one was that obviously they've had the rivalry going for a while, but they were thrust into this 8-man tag, and you were wondering, was one going to screw the other? Was there going to be a lot of miscommunications? No, actually, not only were they working well as a team, but one member of each team working with the other was actually really interesting how they did that. So Cash is getting isolated during the break in picture-in-picture. Gets the hot tag to Matt, who cleans house. Splash from the top to the outside on Butcher and the Blade. Cash and Nick actually end up doing the Goodnight Express. We get a Superplex Splash senton on Blade, but Phoenix breaks the pin up, so they do the Superplex, and then the Splash and a senton by 2 different members. I believe it was Cash and Nick. And then probably the spot of the night, spot of the week, maybe spot of the year. So all of a sudden you got Butcher and the Blade, Matt, and Dash on the outside, right? So FTR, Matt, and Butcher and the Blade all fighting on the outside. Pentagon then gets on all fours as a springboard. Nick is on the ropes. And what Phoenix does is he uses Pentagon as a springboard in midair while Nick is on the middle rope, but he's on the outside of the ropes. So his back is facing all the guys, but he's holding onto the ropes. Phoenix hits a fucking Canadian destroyer onto Nick, who then flips onto the entire crowd of people. This was batshit crazy, bonkers. I marked out hard for it. I rewound it a couple times, even though they played the replay over and over. I saw it about 600 times since today. It was fucking nuts. So much could have gone wrong. Nick even said this was the craziest spot he's ever done. It was just awesome. I mean, the crowd was loving it, obviously, the limited crowd that they had. But if it was a full crowd and this was, like on pay-per-view or even in a live arena, they would have just crazy. It was nuts. Matt super kicks Dax by accident, though. Luchas do the LB driver on Matt for the win, which is Lucha Brothers driver on Matt for the win. This was interesting that the heels went over. I do think it was the right result. Looking at it after, I mean, obviously, this was the one match I got wrong. I thought the Bucks and FTR would win. I wanted the Bucks and FTR because I didn't think I thought it might have been too soon for FTR and the Bucks to lose, but actually I think it's good because I think it humbles them. Also, Butcher and the Blade have just been, aside from a couple of matches here and there against jobber teams, and they've not had a very good run of it. Lucha Brothers are awesome, and I think that this was smart to give them the win. It then kind of adds a little bit of a wrinkle to the feud or the rivalry between FTR and the Bucks. And you actually see them shake hands after this. You would think, with the miscommunication with Matt super kicking Dax, that would just be like, okay, here we go. This is the thing that starts it. But no, they still had genuine respect for each other. I think that I like that. I like that they're going to keep at least hopefully they keep the genuine respect, but they just want to fight each other eventually. I do think they want to hold on to that for now. So let's see. Let's let this breathe a little bit. But it almost seemed like it was like they made a mistake by showing them because you saw them shake hands and then quick cut, like as if you weren't supposed to see it. So we'll see how it goes. So we see Big Swole coming to the building with Alex Marvez out there and another woman. She's served with a letter. saying that she's barred from the building. She's super pissed because she drove 3 hours out there. It's like, you could have emailed, text, phone call, fax machine, whatever, but she says it's because she knows what it's about, and apparently it's because she kidnapped and harassed Britt Baker, which, I mean, in the world of wrestling, kidnapping is like just as ubiquitous as anything else. So I just found that pretty funny. And Britt saying that it's a conspiracy against her, but yet she was able to garner, kind of get them to do that to her. So Nyla Rose, we find out, as we said, Nyla Rose was going to be in action. Turns out it was going to be a handicap match against Coleen King versus Kenzi Page. Kenzi Page faced Nyla Rose on an episode, I believe, of Dark several weeks ago. Just got absolutely destroyed. Coleen King is one of the more prominent female competitors that they've been bringing in for Dark. She's actually pretty good. She's tall. She's about 6 foot, I think. So Nyla destroys Kenzi to start. There's a German on Kenzi, spear on Coleen, fall away slam sends Kenzi into Coleen, and then power bombs one on top of the other for the win. It was just destruction from the very get-go. What was interesting was the post-match promo, because Nyla Rose said she had an announcement to make. She had said that all these people who are doing well have managers. She's hired her own manager, but she won't tell anybody who it is yet. But she'll reveal it in due time, because she said, Cody has Arn, TNT champ. She said, who else did she say that had one? I forget. But she was naming people. Oh yeah, I think Jake with Archer, and then he was, Tazz with Brian Cage, and now he's in the title shot. But then if you look, Jake with Archer had the TNT title shot. I don't think you would say Kip is the manager of Penelope, but Sean Spears is obviously getting more attention now too. But anyway, so we'll find out who that is. Someone had suggested online possibly Vicky Guerrero, which would be interesting. I mean, she obviously has a connection now with AEW. She's always involved in a bunch of sketches, predominantly with the Inner Circle, but she's been involved. She's done guest commentary before. So we get a shot of earlier today with Colt Cabana in the dressing room. Apparently during their match on Dark, he had suffered a huge bruise that across his whole side. It looked almost so ridiculous that it almost looked fake, but apparently it was real. It just wasn't as painful as obviously that he made it out to be. But he was medically cleared. Brody Lee comes in, says that we don't know how it happened, but when you're with us, it's never going to happen again. So get out there. And Colt actually calls him Mr. Brody. So, obviously we're trying to find out, is he drinking the Kool-Aid? Will he join? Who knows? This then goes into our Brody Lee, Stu Grayson, Colt Cabana, Dark Order versus SCU, Scorpio Sky, Christopher Daniels, and Frankie Kazarian. Colt actually ends up coming out with the Dark Order to their music. He doesn't use his own music. But you could tell he just looks so kind of out of place with it. He's kind of wide-eyed and excited, where everyone else is very stoic. Cole actually tries to talk to SCU since he's friends with them and battled against Dark Order at one point. Brody brings him back in the corner and says, "You stay here." There's a nasty German release by Kaz on Stu Grayson for a 2 count. He looked like he landed on his head, but he was fine. Sky and Colt tangle. Colt dealing with the hurt ribs, obviously. As soon as Sky even tries to grab him, he's screaming in pain. Everyone comes out to fight. Kaz takes out Sylvan Reynolds on the outside. Brody with the half and half suplex on Sky for Colt for a 2 count. Massive frog splash by Sky for a 2 count. Brody hits a black hole slam on Kaz. There's a suicide dive to the barricade by CD on Brody Lee. He hits a Arabian moonsault on Stu, but Colt breaks up the count. And then, while that's going on, Christopher Daniels like, "What are you doing?" And, Colt, I mean, obviously they're friends, but they're in a match against each other. So Colt's like, of course I'm trying to win the match. So he lays out Colt Cabana. There's just chaos ensuing. The ref is distracted. Brody Lee comes in with the discus lariat on Christopher Daniels. Tells Stu to pin, to tag in Colt so that Colt can make the pin. So he does. They win. He's excited. He's happy. So now, obviously, will Colt join? I mean, it just seems like he seems obviously so out of place. his personality hasn't changed yet, and that's usually when you start to see someone join a group when they're kind of not necessarily wanting to be in that group. So interesting to see what'll happen with Colt. And now that he's kind of up against his friends, so we'll see if they kind of go to him and be like, what the hell, what's going on. So we find out some more matches for next week, which will be Fight for the Fallen. So they're doing kind of 2 in a row. Now we're just going to wonder what WWE is going to pick out of their bag of tricks to kind of go against them. So we get the Cody challenge with the Cody's going to do the open challenge. So we find out later it's going to be Sonny Kiss. We get FTR versus the Lucha Brothers in tag match. Damn, that's going to be just an absolute fire match. We get the Elite of the Young Bucks and Kenny versus Jurassic Express. So that'll be an interesting match to see what happens. Obviously, Hangman's being left out of it, so will that cause some dissension? And then we obviously will get the AEW heavyweight title finally. The Jon Moxley versus the Machine Brian Cage. So Note sends up Britt sends up a note to Tony. While that's going on, Swole shows up with a mask and a hoodie. She takes the paper that she was handed earlier. They're jawing at each other. She throws the paper at Rebel, and Rebel goes, "Ugh!" And then while she does that, hits Britt in the nose, and then Britt starts freaking out, just overselling it so much so that it just looked hysterical. And then Rebel trying to oversell it, oh my god. It was just really, really funny. I really like the way they're doing this now, and I can't wait for that Swole Britt Baker match. I think that's going to be a really good match because they're really building this up to a really good rivalry between the two, and they're not even throwing hands, so it's great. Also I had on my on the Dark Order match, I did have Dark Order winning that one. I also had Nyla winning 6 points of confidence. I knew that was going to happen. And I also then had only 3 points of confidence for Dark Order winning, but I got that right. And then my final, the final match, the main event, we have Orange Cassidy versus Chris Jericho. It's a little slow to start, but this just really picked up. This was a fun-ass match. I love Orange Cassidy. I love Chris Jericho. So the two of them together in a ring, Cassidy showing when he wants to wrestle is awesome. So we get new music for Cassidy. Usually comes out to Best Friends music. So when he comes out, the Best Friends come out with him, but he actually sends them to the back. He wants to do this on his own, which is interesting. Obviously, Santana and Ortiz come out with Chris Jericho, and they come out with Things of OJ, which will factor in later, and the fact that he doesn't have best friends with him will factor in also. So Cassie's evading with his hands in his pockets, drop kicks Jericho out of the ring, hits a suicide dive to the barricade. Cassidy gets put in the walls of Jericho. Eventually Cassidy gets to the ropes. Ortiz with the mad ball while the ref is turned. Jericho's in control of this. Orange, bunch of pinning attempts on Jericho, but Jericho kicks out of all of them. Then they go to picture-in-picture. Jericho's in control pretty much the entire time. Cassidy sent from the apron to the barricade. Cassidy starts to get fired up, hits strikes on Jericho, hits a Rana from the top on Jericho, does the sweet shin music. Obviously, Jericho had said, "You do that, I'm going to crack you," but instead of doing the fake super kick, he actually does a real super kick instead of just the fake one for a 2 count. Does the lazy splash from the top rope for a 2 count. Does a springboard whisper in the wind onto everyone on the outside when Jericho goes to Santana and Ortiz. He does it, gets Jericho back in the ring, does a diving DDT from the top. I love that move. He just dives at the guy and then hits him with a DDT, but only gets a 2 count. He goes for the Superman punch. He went several times for the Superman punch in this match. So he goes for the Superman punch. Jericho ducks it, hits him, puts him in the walls of Jericho. Cassie's able to battle out and then turn it into a cradle for a 2 count. Orange is pushed kind of like half to the outside. Ortiz throws orange juice in his face. Best friends finally come out and they start brawling to the outside and up the steps. Jericho uses the bat and then hits a code breaker on Cassidy. You think that's it while the ref is turned. Boom, no, Cassidy kicks out. Right then the crowd would just be going wild. Goes for a moonsault, but he misses. Cassidy hits a Michinoku driver only for a 2 count. Goes for another suplex, but it's countered into a stun dog millionaire. Swinging DDT by Cassidy. Then, while Jericho is stunned, he goes for another Superman punch, but unfortunately it is countered into the Judas effect for the win. Jericho is able to win a fantastic main event. Obviously Cassidy loses nothing in this because he showed, that he can hang with the best. Jericho, obviously, you need to keep him strong because he is one of the faces of the company. For this one, I only had 1 point of confidence on this because this could have gone either way. Obviously with Cassidy's popularity, you'd think that maybe they pull the trigger, give him a big win here. Even if it's a fluke win, that way Jericho looks strong, and then you could have a rematch. But I only had 1 point of confidence on that one. So the only match I got wrong, like I said, was the 8-man tag, but I only had 2 points of confidence on that, so it wasn't very confident. So there you have it. That is my recap and review for Fyter Fest. I might do another preview predictions for Fight for the Fallen because they're hyping it up as a themed, almost pay-per-view like. So we'll see how I'm feeling about that. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Oh yeah, well obviously I'll do my match of the night. Was definitely this was tough, but it was the 8-man tag. I mean, the spots they were doing on that. The fact was they had the right person win. Just super memorable. Great seeing just the best tag teams in the world, all in one match. Was just awesome. Looking forward to that FTR Lucha Brothers match now, even more than just if they just announced it without this match. So anyway, so there you go. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. Social media is down there. Stay safe, love each other, and bye now. Do you want to see some magic?